But these are just some of the realities that you need to think through before you decide whether or not you want to go live overseas. You need to really check out, where you're going to live. You need to check out the services that you can get there. You need to check out the cost. And you need to also check out your legal status and your medical care. Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast. As the world has been changing due to the COVID pandemic and more people are able to work from home or wanting to do remote work, a lot of people are thinking like, hey, I should just move overseas. I myself have spent the last 30 plus years of my life living and working overseas. So I believe I understand some of the realities of what it is like to live and work overseas. Today, I want to talk a little bit about some of the realities of becoming what I call a global nomad or remote work. And I want to explain to you 7 realities or things that I see that maybe many people don't think about or don't understand. The first one is that expat life overseas can be expensive. I'm really quite surprised where a lot of people sort of have this feeling that somehow, things should be cheaper overseas. And that's not necessarily true. In fact, a lot of places it could end up being more expensive. And there could be, many reasons for this, or maybe it's not more expensive, or maybe it's just that it's more than you expected it to be. It may not be as cheap as you thought. The cost sometimes for some foods, especially if you want to, eat foods that you would, consider like you want every once in a while to have an American meal, you want to have a turkey for Thanksgiving, you will find that you're going to pay a lot more for those things you may expect. And that's because it's just, a lot of those things are being imported and being brought in. They may be, hard to find. So not everything that you find overseas is going to be cheap. Not everything that is going to be as cheap as you maybe think it's going to be. It, in fact, could end up being quite a bit more expensive. If you're going to live overseas, the next thing you're going to need is you're going to need good medical insurance. And some people might say, well, I'm going to go live in this country and their medical is cheap and I don't need to worry about it. But the truth is that if you get into an accident or something happens, you want to be able to go to the best doctors and the best hospital. And normally that's going to cost. That's going to, not be necessarily cheap. So it's going to be good for you to be able to have good medical insurance. For some places, working remotely may not be possible, or they may be extremely difficult. It could be that, you want to live in this place, you heard it's cheap. Oh, I can live by the beach, all these other things, but you may not understand some of the realities. Maybe, the electricity goes off quite often. And so you don't have electricity. Maybe the internet doesn't work very well. All of these things can make it very difficult for you to be able to complete your task and be able to complete your job, especially if you are looking to work remotely overseas for an American company who's expecting you to be able to be online all the time, who's going to expecting you to get your work done, expecting you to make your deadlines, expecting you to do all those things that you need to do. You may not think it's a problem and you may, need to go, I can just go down to the local cafe or whatever. But sometimes even that can be difficult. It can be hard for you to be on a Zoom meeting or to be onto a call and suddenly you're in this noisy cafe and there's people all around you. It can make it extremely difficult for you essentially to do your work. Sometimes life overseas can be frustrating. If you don't speak the local language, it might be hard to communicate with people. Maybe sometimes trying to do very simple things can be very, very difficult for you. Maybe even trying to find very, very simple things can be difficult. So if you're someone that doesn't handle frustrations in life very well, if you sort of like things to go smoothly, you want to have all your creature comforts, you want to make sure you always have, your air conditioner is always working, that you always have electricity, that you always have good internet. Some places overseas may be extremely difficult for you to be able to live and work. And it may just because of the nature of the life overseas. The other thing is sometimes it can get lonely. If you're going overseas and you're going overseas, especially by yourself, you may not have a support network. You have to rebuild your support network. And it can sometimes get lonely. It can be difficult maybe for you to sometimes meet new friends. Where do you go to meet them? Where do the people go? I have found that if you're going to be overseas, a lot of times by joining a gym or having sports or or, that type of thing, you'll be able to meet some new people. Some people you may find like, oh, well, I'm here working all by myself. I'm stuck alone in this room. And all these other people, they're working for the international school and they all know each other and they're all good friends. So you may feel like you're kind of a little bit left out sometimes because you're not, in with where all the other expats are. You're not working in an embassy or you're not working in one of the schools and you're basically just sitting at home in front of the computer. So yes, it can get lonely sometimes. You will have to be able to navigate life legally by being able to work and live overseas. And this may be one of the hardest things, especially if you are just planning to go over there. A company isn't going to help you get a working permit. You are going to have to, be on your own. Because of COVID, a lot of countries have changed their immigration laws. I know, for example, in Vietnam, that used to very easily give a 1-year visa, now has lately has been giving a 1-month visa. So even people that have been going in and out of Vietnam for years have had to go in and out of the country every single month. And that's another thing which could get really expensive. So, you're renting an apartment, you're, working over there, but legally you need to have to go in and out and fly in and out, every single month in order to stay, in the country or in order to be there legally. And you might think, well, yeah, that's great. I'll be able to travel and do all this. But, at the same time, it can get tiring if you need to suddenly, be in, go out, get another visa. And the visas can also get very expensive too. So legally, you have to be able to navigate yourself. You have to be able to know that this is a country or a place that you will be able to stay, or at least be able to stay long term. The other thing too is you'll be able to understand exactly where you're going and what life is like in that place. What's the right area of town to live. I've seen a lot of people that are just like, well, it doesn't really matter. I can just live anywhere. Yeah, that's true. But if you're in an area which there's high traffic and you are living, even a couple miles away from where most of the normal expats are, where, maybe the Western food is or other things, you may find that it could take you an hour to get anywhere, that it may just be so exhausting and so difficult that you may just say, I don't need to meet any new friends. On the other hand, but if you are somebody who, doesn't really need people and you kind of like to be on your own and you can, be sitting anywhere without people, then, might be that life overseas could be great because it wouldn't matter where you were. I don't want anyone to think that I'm just talking about the negative aspects of this, because actually there are a lot of positive aspects of it too. But these are just some of the realities that you need to think through before you decide whether or not you want to go live overseas. You need to really check out, where you're going to live. You need to check out the services that you can get there. You need to check out the cost. And you need to also check out your legal status and your medical care. And then also see, where's your support network going to be? Where's your friends going to be? Where are you going to be able to, find people that you have something in common with? If that is what's important to you, if that's what matters. There's a lot of great places overseas that have great expat communities. You can find great clubs overseas, great medical care. You can, find great places to live, which in many cases can be cheaper than especially a major city in the United States. But on the other hand, you may be away from family and friends. You may be away from things that things that you're used to. And those are all things that you need to understand is going to be different when you go live and work overseas. If you're someone who loves an adventure and you love to live your life as a global citizen, then living overseas may be exactly the right choice for you. If so, go for it and have a great time. This is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to read more about living life overseas, as a global nomad, we'll put a link below to a blog post that we wrote from On a Bus on a Dusty Road. And we really appreciate you listening. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us. And thank you so much for listening and being part of our community.